All right, here we are again. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this Show Your Mix session today in English with Dennis Ward. Dennis is a well-known mixing engineer in the world of rock and metal music. He has worked with many bands and artists around the globe, and he's joining me today for this Show Your Mix session. And yeah, feel free to submit your songs so we can give you some feedback and give you some inspiration where you can improve and what was good and stuff like that. So please send us your mixes to the following mail account. It's showyourmix@hofa.de. Show your mix as one word at hofa.de. You can also see it here in your monitor and screen. So yeah, we're waiting for your songs. And as a matter of fact, this will be a hard and heavy special today. So we're only focusing on rock and metal songs, which is actually our style. It's Dennis' style, it's mine style as well. So yeah, we'll give you some feedback. Feel free to send us your mixes and then we'll give it a go and give you some feedback. What can be done with your mixes? All right.
Yes.
So
Okay.
Dennis, is there anything you'd like to add? A little bit of introduction, who you are, what you do, maybe.
I'm Dennis.
All right.
I've been the last year just doing a lot of mixing,
Okay, cool.
and so I'm glad to be here for this presentation because it seems my main focus the past 12 months was mixing, and I just finished a mix, well, actually yesterday, for Edu Falashi on his new solo album, and that should be coming out in a few months as far as I know. I've also done some mixes for Gus G, and I'm currently finishing up North Tail with Bill Hudson, finishing up their production, and a couple other surprises coming along the way. So my head is in mixing right now. I'm
that's cool.
completely into mixing right now.
Yeah.
So looking forward to see what the people send us.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I think here we are. So the first two mixes reached us.
Okay.
And yeah, shall we give it a go?
Let's have a
Are
listen.
you ready? Let's have a listen. Running with Skizzers, Our Class.
Our
All right,
Class, okay.
let's give it a go.
Okay, cool song. Very nice
Cool.
stuff. Good start.
Good start.
So, yeah, I mean, there's always going to be things that are going to be left to taste and opinion, of course, obviously. So I'm always going to judge or comment to my perspective of the way I would do things. First of all, the good thing is the vibe is there. Mission accomplished. If you wanted to get over the aggressivity of the song, it's definitely there. So very, very well done. Okay. Things that I am noticing that I would watch out for. First thing I notice is a lot of activity is happening directly in the middle of the spectrum. There's not much going on left and right other than maybe an effect or the fact that the main guitars are panned left and right, which is fine, but there's a constant fight with the vocals and some overdub guitars where I personally, as a listener, was having a problem to understand what I should be listening to. So sometimes I had the feeling like the main theme or the hook, which is the vocals in most cases, got a little bit lost. It went background. In the beginning of the song, the first thing I thought was that the vocals are definitely pushed a little bit back. But that's always a matter of taste. I personally like vocals to be front and center because I like to hear what's going on from the singer. Having said that, sonically, it sounds very good. I did notice a bit of a conflict with the bass drum and the bass guitar around 100 hertz. And probably an easy fix. For me, it sounds more like the bass drum is intruding, or rather the bass guitar is intruding on the space of the bass drum at 100 hertz, where a bass drum has good punch. That's what we want. And the bass guitar should somehow go around that. That's what we call bass shifting. And in that case, I would either just reduce a bit of 100 hertz on the bass guitar, maybe raise below 80 to 50 hertz on the bass guitar so it makes up for the lost difference, or just removing 100 hertz might have done it in this case. Other things I'm not too keen on are the fact of mastering to death with LFUs of 5 dB. That's basically the music isn't moving. There's no dynamic whatsoever. I understand some people like really, really loud masters. I'm kind of happy that those days are basically gone because nobody cares and everything is regulated online or in radio anyway. So master as loud as you want. It doesn't matter. It will be pushed back. You can be sure of that. So that's just my opinion on things. I used to master stuff very loud too. I don't do it anymore. Yeah, there was a couple times where I thought, it's a shame that the snare is getting pushed back when the vocals and the guitars and everything's accenting at the same time. It just lost all dynamic, but that's what happens when you master and limit the shit out of things. So, again, that's just my opinion. But all in all, great mix, great vibe, well done.
Absolutely, I would second that. What Dennis said. Keep an eye on the snare, maybe in the parts where the arrangement gets fuller, because there's so much of energy going on in the middle section. Speaking of the panning, and the snare really got masked and covered a little bit by the energy from the other elements. Another thing that I would suggest is to lower the level of the piano in towards the end of the song, because it really annoyed me a little bit due to the level, as it appeared to be a little bit too loud. Because keep in mind, it's been played in the higher areas, so or in the higher frequency range, so it will definitely be easy to cut through the mix. And maybe you can just lower the level of the piano section a little bit, so it will there will be a little bit more of a cluing with the rest of the song and the elements. But I would totally agree with everything that Dennis said here.
Yes.
All right, we're having a little of a helper here, which is our very own plugin. It's the IQ Analyzer by HOFA. And this tool helps us to see the frequency response. You have the energy curve over time, and you also has a peak detection if there, for example, is going on some stuff in the higher range with the S sounds. So you can clearly see that in the peak curve, the upper curve, but with this regard, and in this case, it's actually a quite natural frequency response and totally typical for that kind of stuff. All right, shall we give it a go with the next one?
Sure.
Are you ready? So here we are. It's a German title. Lass es Asche regnen. All right, well, let's give it a go.
Ich häng zu Hause und ich hab keinen Spaß, ich brauch keine Pause. Weil ich Action mag, der Glanz in deinen Augen. Sag, du fühlst es auch, du kannst mir gern glauben. Komm, ich führ dich raus. Ja, ich lebe in Deutschland und das ist das Problem. Ich habe keinen Hunger, denn ich lebe bequem. Lass mal irgendwas abfackeln oder Drogen nehmen. Viel Sex am Mund schreien, fick das System. Shit, das ist es auch nicht, keine positive Aussicht. Ich betäub den Geist mit Alkohol und guck Pornos mit Faustfick. Langweilig, wann passiert denn endlich was? Mal, ich halte nicht mehr aus, mich frustriert diese Stadt. Und die Asche, sie regnet vom Himmel, doch der Schmerz hört nicht auf. Und die Straßen sehen aus wie verschimmelt, das Herz schreit und ich auch. Kannst du das Feuer sehen, es brennt am Horizont? Hand in Hand stehen wir vor den Flammen, ja die Stadt fackelt ab, man, die Stadt fackelt ab. Kannst du das Feuer sehen, es brennt am Horizont? Hand in Hand stehen wir vor den Flammen, ja die Stadt fackelt ab, man, die Stadt fackelt ab. Meine Hobbys sind Lesen, Fahrradfahren und Wichsen, ab und zu geh ich auch schwimmen, wandern oder fixen, flixen. Netflix natürlich, wäre ja noch schöner, denn sonst wäre ich ja fröhlich. Essend ist das hier ne öde Nummer, nur damit ich was zu tun hab, krieg ich Depression und Kummer, jetzt ist Schluss damit, check das doch mal, wann passiert endlich was, verdammte Scheiße nochmal, mich frustriert diese Stadt. Und die Asche, sie regnet vom Himmel, doch der Schmerz hört nicht auf. Und die Straßen sehen aus wie verschimmelt, das Herz schreit und ich auch. Kannst du das Feuer sehen, es brennt am Horizont? Hand in Hand stehen wir vor den Flammen, ja die Stadt fackelt ab, man, die Stadt fackelt ab. Kannst du das Feuer sehen, es brennt am Horizont? Hand
Okay. Cool song. Very
Indeed.
90s crossover vibe.
Indeed. Yeah.
But pretty cool. Yeah. Also for me, all in all, a really, really good round mix. Um, what I wasn't too keen on is the guitar sound, to be totally honest. It is biting at around 5K really bad. It's almost whistling. There was a constant resonance in the high frequencies from the guitars, no matter what note, no matter what chord that was played, which is often a problem with guitars, heavy guitars, high gain guitars. And this is always easier choreographed when you like play with your mic position. Go toward the cone or outside of the cone, and you can reduce this dramatically. Having said that, with the EQ alone, I would have done some notch filtering up around there. Look for those first, that whistling, then that scratching feature. That scratching noise that was coming out. Because once you've reduced some of these kind of resonances, it's much easier to get the guitar louder, without it being annoying. You can still have a guitar aggressive without having too many high frequencies. And sometimes you have to boost while you reduce. Boost in one place, reduce in the other place. And that was my only real critic to the overall sound. The other things are like, if you're going to use in this kind of aggressive music, especially groovy aggressive music, if you're going to use reverbs and halls, be a bit more critical about what reverbs you use. Because toward the ends, I felt that some of the reverbs I heard going on, the vocals they were making the song sound softer rather than aggressive. And I would have looked for a more aggressive sounding kind of room, probably something like a chamber or a small chamber, and put a little bit of pre-delay in it so that you feel the movement of the room and the depth. Okay. Having said that, I would have probably also used a whole lot less because I don't think it was necessary for that kind of music. So either you use room to make the space you're trying to find, or you use it as an effect. And here it was a little bit too much of an effect, and it didn't really do the effect that I would have wanted to do. But other than that, the drum sound's really cool, very round, great tom sound, by the way. I heard the hi-hat very clear. That's also a very critical point for me. So all in all, great. It wasn't crushed to death in the master. Thumbs up for me on that. Bass is hitting in well, so I have no other real points. Cool song too, by the way.
Yeah, I would also second that. I really like the drum sound, for example, and especially the snare, because it has a really wooden tone, and I usually like it if it's not too much like a triggered sound and there's some natural harmonics going on. And I really like the wooden tone of the snare sound. I would agree with the rooms as well, maybe using a chamber sound with more pre-delay to make it more aggressive and less soft, because the two singers are actually right about to scream and express themselves, because the message of the song is quite heavy and it needs to be shouted out. So maybe adding more aggressiveness by using other reverbs. And yeah, I think that's it for this song. Great production as well.
Yeah, cheers.
All right, shall we go on?
Yeah,
we have
absolutely.
the third one. This is Power Circuit Troublemaker. Okay, let's see what we got here. Are you ready?
Indeed.
I'm running through the night, burning cars, looking for fight. Destruction is my sense of life. I'm a hero in the dive. They call me a loser, still know that I'm cruiser. I will stop at nothing. I'm a fit for nothing. I'm a troublemaker. I'm a troublemaker. I'm a troublemaker. Is there anybody listening? I'm a troublemaker. I'm a troublemaker. I'm a troublemaker. I don't wanna run in hell.
Indeed. Cool.
Cool. All right. Before we start, you might want to shout out what the email address is again.
Yeah, it's showyourmix@hofa.de. There it is. You can see it on your screen. Yeah, just send us your mixes.
Very good. Okay, now to the song. First of all, again, a cool song. I again like the fact that it wasn't smushed in mastering, but it was quite loud actually. So,
Indeed.
but it was still well done. A couple of points here. First of all, it was executed very well, and that's great because you got your song across, and that's mix here or there, bass drum sound, guitar sound. If you don't get your mix, the feeling of your song across, you've lost anyway. So the best guitar sound in the world doesn't help then if you don't have that. But that was accomplished, so that's good. Getting critical, once again, the bass guitar is kind of flopping around in the background a little bit. It's not very solid. That can be fixed many ways. I'm not quite sure what I'm listening to, if it's a DI only, or if there's an amp in there as well. But it's very, very dynamic. In this kind of music, you want to get your bass frequencies really solid. And that's done often with the amp sound alone makes it much more stable. It makes it sit better in the mix, okay? And the right kind of compression, allowing deep frequencies to pass through the side chain without being compressed, is also very critical. You know, between 80 to 100 hertz, maybe even as low as 50 hertz. Let these frequencies fly through alone, compressing everything else so you can get the bass up loud enough that where you hear the notes, but it doesn't interrupt everything. Having said that, I'm a person that enjoys saturation on bass very much. I like to saturate the low frequencies, be it from the amp or from like a preamp setting, or even from a compressor setting. There's some great compressors that have great saturation effects, like the 1176 or the Distressor, just to name a few. I would have tried to get the bass to be a little bit more stable compared to the guitars. Having said that, the guitars were nice, a bit fuzzy on top, and therefore not aggressive enough in the high mids, for my feeling. We're talking nuances. We're not talking about big changes here. I'm talking about, making a little bit less fuzzy with a low-pass filter around 6K, 5K, and therefore boosting around 2 to 3K so that it's, coming at you a little bit more, right? But these are really small details. My biggest critic, and I'm only going to criticize because it's more effective and helps more if you criticize than just go, oh, that's great. So, the vocals. The vocal sound is very nice, almost too nice. In this kind of music, again, everybody's fighting for the position in the spectrum, right? The bass, the guitar, the drums, the vocals. In this case, the vocals were very much jumping at me at some point, and some words, especially the high notes, were jumping at me. And I could also just say you need to compress it more, but I actually don't. You might want to try with some compression to give it more of a vibe with some sound, because some compressors just make this rock and roll sound. An 1176 compressor will always have that vibe that makes a cool mojo that you want to get your vocal to sit in the mix immediately better, right? Having said that, I'm a person that will use 2, 3, 4 different compressors on a lead vocal if I need to get the point across, using different stages, different needs, different kind of attack and release settings, right? So don't be afraid to do that. Try different settings, try things on top of each other. I end most of my lead vocals with a limiter because I just want to stop the last decibel or two from poking out, and a limiter works better than a compressor in this case, usually. Having said that, you got to try it out for yourself. And don't forget you have automation. So if there's something too loud or too quiet, just pull it up and down. That's what those little buttons are for, You have unlimited automation in basically any DAW in the world. So before you start looking for plug-in solutions, don't forget, maybe if that one note, there's a high frequency bothering you, you can EQ that note out for a millisecond if that's what it takes, You don't have to make a setting that's going to work the entire song all the time, Use your automation and try to get results that way, okay? Other than that, very good mix.
Yeah, I would second that as well. I really like the sound of the lead guitar. It actually reminds me of a very bluesy tone, like a lead tone from of guitarist Dave Murray from Iron Maiden, for example, who plays a lot of solos with his band, of course, obviously. But I really like this approach instead of having this high gain mid range sound, but more of a bluesy note, bluesy tone, and that's what I really liked. And some great old school vibes going on, for example, the glory days of Primal Fear or even Gamma Ray. So I think the vocals were really well done. Also, speaking of the arrangement, I liked the panning automation of this little siren that came into place towards the end of the song, and it started from the right and ended on the left. So really cool FX processing here. Yeah, quite good. So the next one. There it is. Sentience 1 or Sentience, I don't know. Awakening.
Okay.
Let's give it a go. We all awake or not. I'm sorry. Let's start again. There was another track masking this one. Here it is.
Okay.
Yeah, totally different, of course. Sorry, my fault. Now that was quite a journey, wasn't it?
Okay, there you go.
Cool.
That was a short pop song, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Yeah, all in all, cool song. First of all, love the vocals. Kidding, of course. And quite long. And if I'm going to give a critic to that, just because the whole beginning just sort of stagnate for a while until stuff actually started happening. Of course, in prog rock, I get it. The sky's the limit. You can do what you want there. It's not a bad thing. I probably would have fought to death against that, but that's just me. Now, to the sound. There's a lot of great stuff and a couple of things I got questions about, to be honest. So I love the guitar tone. I really do. It's a little bit on the scratchy side for me, but I don't know, my ears don't like it. I don't like it when it gets too... I'd like to soften it up a little bit there. I like the aggressivity to be lower on a guitar than way up there in the scratchy zone. So that's just a matter of opinion. The bass guitar is sitting really well with the kick drum. It's really separated. That's exactly what I mean, okay? That it has a good, distortion to it. It doesn't sound fuzzy. It's sustaining on the low end where it should sustain. It's out of the way of the bass drum. It's out of the way of the guitar. So that's really, really well done. Now to the drums. All in all, I like the drums a lot, especially the kick drum. What I found to be a little bit strange, I like the snare. I think it sounds really great, but the snare has this width and early reflections on it. It's going all over the place. It's really, really wide, right? Which is great. And then I heard the toms, and they just sat in the middle. They just didn't move at all. The snare sounded 3-dimensional, and the toms just sounded 2-dimensional as they could possibly be. There was absolutely no panning, no left to rightness. And when I hear this compared to the overheads and everything that is very wide, I hear stuff going on left and right, and I have this width to it. And then a tom fill is just set down the middle. I personally don't like that. I like to have either drummer's perspective or listener's perspective where the toms are going a little bit left to the right, unless your drummer happens to have 3 toms on top of each other, which I don't think he does. Having said that, I think this is superior drums. It's what it sounds like to me. Having received this year more productions with superior drums than I ever have in my life, because that seems to be the thing these days. That is fine. There's nothing wrong with that, But if you want to get it to sound real, you might want to pay a little bit of attention to that. If you're going to get your snare to have that width, keep in mind the rest of the drum kit is in the same room. So if your snare is wide, why aren't your toms wide? That was a little bit weird for me personally. Having said that, the instrument's tones were great. I found the cymbals to be a little bit too bright for me. Sometimes they had this tss effect that I didn't care for, and I would have probably warmed them up a tiny bit, but all in all, it was really good. The effects are really, really cool. I love these stereo effects. I love the stuff happening. I love it going from ultra clean to ultra heavy guitars. The patterns were neat, there was a lot to listen to and a lot to enjoy. So you get a big thumbs up from me, and just the only real critic I could have, like I said, is to try to get those toms and the rest of the drums to fit into your picture of the drums. Okay. Other than that, yeah, very good.
True. Yeah. Hands up to the performance as well, because it's definitely not that easy to play it the way it's had been played here, and there's some prog metal vibes going on, like early Fates Warning, early Dream Theater stuff. So really, really good performance. The arrangement is great. I would also say that maybe the trebles and the higher frequency range is maybe a little bit overpronounced. You can hear it with these kind of bell sounds that are going on in the middle part, and you can clearly see it in the analyzer. If you take a closer look at the peak curve, there you have some energy going on, as you can see it here, above and beyond 10K. And that's some harmonics, but also some bells and the sounding of the bells. And I would actually lower it. Maybe you can use a little roll-off filter or high-cut filter. And as well as Dennis said, keep an eye on the cymbal sounds, that they are not too much over the top, because you're close to the edge here. But all in all, absolutely great production. In the first part, I actually thought, maybe the drums, they are a little bit too loud, like the snare. You can clearly hear the reverb because there is less stuff going on. But as soon as we reach the end, there's more and more. The guitars get really heavy, and you have that 7/8 feel with the meter changes as well. So it works in the end. But in maybe the first third of the song, maybe you can lower the volume of the drums, especially the snare, and maybe also the reverb, the send level on the snare, to avoid it sound too roomy and maybe too far away in terms of speaking of reverb. Yeah. All right. Very cool song. Shall we go on with the next one?
Absolutely.
So here we are again. Let's check the meter. Okay.
When they dance, dance, dance as long their feet carry them. And they dance, dance, dance all night long. And they dance, dance, dance as long their feet carry them. Down the alley road. Rough the journey for too long. Miles weeks countless days away. Gave it to me as one. Just 40 days left to wait. In a dark and misty night, they slipped away by no one seen. Driven by his endless search, and still a kiss from his love. And they dance, dance, dance as long their feet carry them. And they dance, dance, dance all night long. And they dance, dance, dance as long their feet carry them. Down the Abbey Road. Did you mess with my bill?
Sorry.
And they dance, dance, dance all night long. And they dance, dance, dance as long their feet carry them. Down the Abbey Road. When they heard them sing and they saw them dance, they heard them love and they saw them dance. And all with them they felt their love, but no one saw the end was night. When they dance, dance, dance as long their feet carry them. And they dance, dance, dance all night long. And they dance, dance, dance as long their feet carry them. Down the Abbey Road.
Okay. Very
Something
good.
different here,
Definitely
especially
something
compared to the previous song.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of the 80s folk
Yeah.
punk
Yeah,
era,
absolutely.
Pogues and stuff like that. That was actually very, very cool. And wow, to my surprise, I was actually concentrating on something to criticize about. And to be honest, other than the fact that you could have easily, without even mastering it, made it 5 dBs louder. But that doesn't matter. It wasn't mastered, obviously, but therefore it sounds very, very cool. So my only honest to God real critic is that the vocals could have used a little bit of more compression on them. Because I feel in this kind of music, the vocals should be very audible, but they shouldn't jump out in the wrong places. You could also probably do that with some automation, but in this case, I felt it was also need a little bit of vibey compression, not only compressing to control it, but to give it a kind of a vibe that it was missing. The drum bass separation, fantastic here. I like the guitar sound. Everything sat together. Nothing stood out in the wrong way. All in all, a very, very round and well sorted out mix. So I really can't say anything negative.
Yeah, I would second that as well. I think in this type and kind of music, there has to be a little bit of mud and there has to be a little
Absolutely.
bit of natural sounding going on, because it's not about having a drum sound with lots and lots of impact and transients and attack and punch. It's about the whole band as they would perform in a small pub drinking some Guinness, and that's it. Yeah, and that's what it's all about here with this Irish and Celtic kind of mood, kind of vibe. And my only criticism would be the vocals could see some tuning every now and then. Of course, it has to be a little bit natural and there has to be a little bit of mud, as I mentioned before. But maybe you could keep an eye on some parts where the vocals seems to be a little bit out of tune. Maybe you can fix it by using your tools that come with your DAW or using Melodyne Autotune and stuff like that. But except that, I'm as well really happy with the song and the production. Cool.
Well done.
Something different. Well done. Okay, the next one has a really funny title. It's Rhabarbera Wuchtbrumme. Seems to be a German title as well. Let's give it another go. Okay, so everything's muted. All right, there it comes.
I'm laughing, but in a positive way. That was very cool, actually.
Yeah.
So, where do I start here? First of all, I'm assuming this is a two-piece band, which is definitely okay. If it's not, then your bass player must be really pissed right now. So, obviously there was no bass guitar, so I'm assuming this is a two-piece project, which is, cool. It exists, and nothing wrong with that. So, what I like is that you're trying to fill up space with just having two instruments, meaning bass, guitar, and drums, and nothing else. No vocals, no bass, obviously, no keyboards. Sonically speaking, I respect the fact that you're trying to make space by panning mainly the guitars to the right with some kind of pseudo effect left, and then a pseudo effect on the right to make space for the middle. However, having said that, you're making space for nobody because there's nobody there to make space for. There's no vocals. Like in the 80s, Van Halen would do that. The guitar would be left. His reverb would be on the right, drums and bass and the vocals in the middle. So they made some space for it. But this kind of a thing, there is no reason to make the space. I would have personally preferred that the guitar just be dead center with some kind of effect stuff happening on both sides instead of just one side. And not worry about covering up the drums because they won't be covered up at all. The guitar had a lot of deep low ends, which is usually a no, you don't do that. But in this case, there's no bass guitar, so why the hell not, I love the kick drum. The kick drum was actually very, very cool, special sound, something very, very different. It had power. I like that. I like the whole drum kit, to be honest. I wish it was wider. If the overheads had been, well, XY is fine if you're going to, mic from the middle and the top, which is fine. But having some room mics, to add a little bit of depth and strength to the wideness would have been a nice plus to have. Or maybe there's a way to put a small room on the entire kit to give it this feeling of having a bit more width. Other than that, there's not much to complain about. Guitar sound is definitely a matter of taste. It sounded like broken tubes at some points. But if that's what you like, distortion is distortion, and distortion is usually a bad thing. So if you like your distortion, you like your sound, then it's a good thing. Nothing wrong with that. I really would only, like I said, try to implement using the middle as opposed to just the sides for getting your point across in your mix, okay? And, two-piece band, cool, why not? Nothing else to add.
Yeah. Really, really cool. So the frequency response is a little bit like a journey, but of course you have no real bottom end going on because there's no bass guitar, and it's almost like a jam session. So as some of the other songs that we already listened to today, it doesn't need to be mixed very, very clean like a studio production with 200 tracks and orchestral stuff going on. So it's just about the drummer and the guitarist, and they should bring everything together. So there has been a discussion on the chat about the 2K, where there is some resonance and some high amount of energy going on. So we could definitely focus on that a little bit. But
I think that was a feedback. That was just in the beginning.
Definitely. I think it
else.
was some feedback from the guitars that he tried to bring in and to have the circumstance that he tries to add some effects to vary the sound a little bit.
And it was there long enough to influence the
absolutely.
Analyzer. That's
not
all.
only in the peak
there
curve,
is no
also,
if it, at that range, if there was a constant resonance, I would sit here with my fingers in my ears because it would hurt.
Definitely. So what I would like to say
that.
is it doesn't really matter that there is any peak going on at 2K here, because it doesn't have a major impact on the overall sound. It was just a little bit of a sequence and a little part where this came into place. So it's not to worry about at all.
And
absolutely.
Point out as well that an analyzer is a tool to help you. It's not a tool to completely guide you.
Absolutely. So it's still about your ears.
I
listening to the sound.
Analyzers to if I'm curious or I think and there's something maybe I should pay attention to. I don't use an analyzer like a Bible and say my analyzer says it's too bright or too bassy. Because at the end of the day, This is just music. It is not rocket science. It's
Yeah.
not that complicated, really.
Exactly. So you have to focus on listening and using your ears, and so you can judge, and then you can use these little helpers to, if you're unsure what's going on, and if you would like to check from a technical point of view. But in the end, you gotta decide what you hear, and if you think it's quite good, so it is. All right. The next one, Go to Hell.
Okay.
Let's see what's happening here.
Walking to the fire, burning hell this way, running to the nightmare, the pain leads away. Whatever, whenever, however, the hell you say. Whatever, whenever, the hell you say. Go to hell. Now keep the fire burning, no matter what you say. Burning just like fire, the metal leaks away. Whatever, whenever, however, the hell you say. Whatever, whenever, the hell you say. Go to hell. Whatever, whenever, however, the hell you say. Whatever, whenever, the hell you say. Whatever, whenever, however, the hell you say. Whatever, whenever, the hell you say. Go to hell.
Okay, that was a short one. All right. Good. I must say that mix grew on me as I listened to it. In the beginning, I was a little bit unsure, but I think it had something to do with listening to so many different things at the same time or in the same hour. It's a traditional kind of a modern metal thing going on there. And of course, the drum I can tell is programmed and very, 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 very tight. It's a standard kind of a MIDI smacky snare, and I like that. It's a cool thing. Everything fit together. There was a couple of tone things that I personally would have tried to find different. Like the guitar sound was actually kind of neat, but for that kind of a song that I was listening to, I would have wanted a little bit more of a true metal guitar sound. To be honest, that was a little bit more of a I sometimes play blues as well sound, you know. Not that it wasn't distorted enough, it just didn't jump at me like I would like. Not a frequency thing. It's not too bright here and too dull there. It's definitely a character thing. I would have looked for an amp sound that just was different. I don't know exactly what amp I would tell you. Something that was more metal. Is the only way I can put it. More of a metal, traditional metal sound. Okay. Other than that, the vocals sat nicely. Bass guitar. It was there. It sounded like a very MIDI nosy sounding bass guitar. Not my cup of tea at all. I like bass to be deep and fat and sneak its way under the music, not sort of poke out in the middle of the music. It's always a matter of taste, but I prefer it to be, precision sounding or neck jazz bass pickup sound in a nice and dirty driven Ampeg kind of a sound for any kind of metal, to be honest. And I would have concentrated on trying to get that a little bit more in place. The bass drum, I had the feeling it was either too long, meaning that the note was sustaining a deep note was sustaining very long, or there was some kind of a room reverb sustaining on the snare in the fast parts that you might want to automate away in the fast parts, in the double bass parts, I mean, or even just thinning out your kick drum in the fast part so that it doesn't become too obtrusive and get in the way of other things. And lastly, the vocals, I guess I love the effects and stuff. There's all cool stuff. And the vocal sound is pretty cool. It was missing a bit of dimension. I sat right dead in the middle, and other than the effects that jumped out, there seemed to be nothing to it. Meaning either try something like a really good, tight, small room just to give it more width, like an aggressive kind of sounding wood room or something like that, or even try some of these old school tricks like using a harmonizer spreader, like the famous Eventide HD 3000, the micro pitch, which just shifts a couple of cent left and right, just so you can add a little bit, and it gives a little bit of feeling of there's more happening here than just me sitting in the middle. I'm taking up a little bit of space left and right. There's also some stuff, I think, from Waves. There's a pitch shifter that does a pretty good job of this too, as I remember. And even by HOFA's the system plugin, I know there's some micro shifts in there too. What I've made myself a pretty cool wideness effect that I've used many times, and something like that just helps this kind of music, because metal, especially this kind of metal, it should sound bigger than life. It's not meant to sound like a bar in the pub with a band in it. It's on the stage and everything's bigger than life. So I try to get the vocals, other than the effects happening, to sound bigger than life with a cool verb, maybe a bit of a spreader, and try to get that bass guitar to sound a little bit more like a mean metal bass guitar. But other than that, very cool.
Yeah, absolutely. There are some, so the chat is telling us there might be some Iron Maiden vibes going on. I think you can tell that from the twin lead guitar in the middle section. I wouldn't agree with the overall style. I think it has more some kind of a Firewind vibe. I think the early days from Firewind that Dennis is also quite familiar with because he worked with Gus G together.
Yes.
And one thing that I wouldn't agree is the snare sound, because I think in this kind of power metal style, I would focus on giving the snare maybe a little bit more space, a little bit more aggressiveness, and maybe you can use a transient designer or some more compression, or do some triggering and use a layer underneath. So it's not about replacing the sample or whatever is going on here, but maybe you can use another trigger and use another layer to make it sound a little bit more punchy. But it's a matter of taste, of course. There are different opinions on that, but that's what came into my mind. Maybe the snare could be a little bit more punchy and with more attack and a little bit more transient shaping going on. All right.
Okay.
So now from Go to Hell, let's go on Off the Void. Let's see what we got here.
We came from down to drain out of the madness. under cluster of betray of the unchosen ones. You may not like our company, but now we're here and we'll never go away. We ditch into your deeper thoughts, your well enclosure of the heart, a pressure rift of your darker side. Then you will open all you are and stop to mask your bearing now and recognize there's nothing left in you. We are you. We all you try to fit into. The thing you've been looking down onto. Down, down, down. Onto. It's all you, way down the drain of the void, where your insanity, we're deep inside of your brain. The earlier you join us, the sooner we'll be one. The earlier you join us, the sooner we'll be one. The earlier you join us, the sooner we'll be one. The earlier you join us, the sooner we'll be gone. It's all you, way down the drain of the void, where your insanity, we're deep inside of your brain.
Okay,
All right.
good stuff. Okay.
Cool.
I'm gonna first say what was really cool, and that was the bass guitar. That was really cool. That's exactly the kind of crap I like. And it sounds like a bass guitar. It doesn't sound like I don't know, low notes added to the music. That's what a bass guitar sounds like. What I really wasn't a bit turned off to be completely honest, was the extreme amount of compression and limiting on the whole thing. When the drum and bass played alone, I thought, well, that's nice. And then when other stuff came, it just got pushed away from the dynamic control, from the compressor limiter. It was just all gone. The cool bass and drums were just gone when everything was played together. I could see that the level of the file was pulled down, but just flattened. We had maybe I don't know, minus 3 dBs of headroom when the song was playing. If you just look at it, there's zero pulse and zero dynamic. I mean, look at that. That is just squashed to death. And
Absolutely.
if Chris, if you pull up the volume of it, of that one file, just to see how far we go until it reaches headroom. Yeah, keep going. Go all the way up until it gets. Oh, okay. Stop. Go back down a little bit until we see. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're about plus 7 dB. And if we look at the LUFS that we've got right now, which I think is a minus 13, something like that, and then we added 7 to that, right? And we were playing around in the area of minus 6, minus 5 LUFs. That's louder than Metallica saying anger.
Yeah.
That's really, really loud. That's squished to death. And I personally am not a fan. You just lose transiences. You don't have the pulses are gone, you know. Having said that, the guitars sound great, vocals sound great, the mix is all in general great. Sounds great, really. And like I said, the bass sound really, really cool. I liked everything about it, but I'm just
So are you okay with the drum sound, really?
no,
Okay.
the drum sound is in general the certain sounds I like
Yeah.
a lot, but it was very narrow.
Yeah.
There was absolutely no width. When it started, I thought, oh, the song's in mono, because it was just no cymbals left and right. The snare,
Yeah.
I can tell there's room on the snare, but the room had no width. There was no bright, this wide early reflection sound from bright frequencies that hit the walls and come back at you.
Yeah.
That was a bit of a shame. I would have liked to have, it doesn't have to be totally wide. Some people don't like wide. Some people don't like toms panning left and right. That's absolutely fine. But, to get it a little bit more out of this, not just in the center, a little bit spread out evenly so that it doesn't seem like it's just sitting in one spot all the time, okay? That was a bit of a shame. I think that could have easily been fixed by just opening up the reverbs to be wider, whatever was on the drums, and not squish them to death. Mm-hmm. Other than that, vocals were cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bass guitar, like I said, very
Yeah.
cool.
Steve Harris
The-
kind of style.
Yeah, and the bass drum was separating between the bass when I could hear it really well. I would really back that limiter up a little bit on your master. It's being abused.
Yeah, and you can tell that by listening to the snare drum.
Yeah, it was
because
gone when the
it was
music
gone.
It was gone. It was just,
When there was much energy going on, the guitars, the vocals, the chorus section,
it was just
the snare was just gone.
gone. Yeah.
So
That comes from
Yeah.
excessive limiting.
absolutely, yeah. Maybe when it comes to editing and mixing drums, I think there could have been a little bit more fundamentals to the tom sound and maybe to the snare drum sound as well, because I found it a little bit to be thin and less, maybe powerless. So, but that's also because there is so much compression and limiting going on, so you lose your transients and your presence in the mix as well. So, but that would be something I might have put my hands on to actually bring back the energy here where it actually should be, which is in the lower midsection, especially for the toms. Don't make them sound resonant at all, that's quite clear, but yeah, a little bit more punch and power in the lower frequency range wouldn't be too bad with this mix, I think.
Well, it probably is there. It just wasn't hearable because the
Yeah,
limiter just sort of squished
absolutely.
it away. I'd like
Yeah.
to hear the mix again without the limiting. I'm curious. I got a feeling
Yeah.
it might be a lot better.
Might be a lot better
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
And I think that there was one part with the hi-hats speaking out really loud, and there was some resonance going on. I think it was between 2 and 3K maybe, where the hi-hat seems quite loud. And maybe using a little bit of dynamic EQing could help you here to keep control that it's not going too much over the top, and that you can keep control with this element without lowering the level too much.
A hot tip for stuff like that, including cymbals, especially rooms, and
Mm-hmm.
it works on hi-hats too, is to use a de-esser.
Yeah,
It can do
true.
wonders because sometimes hi-hats just stick out in places that you don't want them to stick out, especially when you open close a lot. And you could zone into a frequency and de-ess it. Having said that, the HOFA IQ-EQ, it has multiple bands. You can really zone into special bands of your rooms, hi-hats, overheads, and notch filter at really aggressive positions. And that's also a very, very big help sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. So if we can see the screen of the DAW, yeah, here it is. So you not only have the typical bell filter, but you could also add the dynamic section, put a threshold on it, and then it will the level will only be taken out of the whole thing that's going on when there's a threshold passed. And you can also, of course, do little notches if you like, just like Dennis said, and then change the frequency, and you have 6 bands where you can do this, along with the high pass and the low pass filter. Yeah, you can use it as a de-esser as well, because it's a dynamic EQ, but you can also use a usual de-esser, of course, depending on the plugins and maybe the outboard gear that you have. Who knows, yeah. Okay, good. Cool song.
Okay.
So, okay, I think there is some time left for maybe we can, make the 4 of them. So let's get through them. Are you ready?
Yes.
Piano. Okay, I think that's a typical beat for a rap or hip hop song, but today is actually about rock and metal. It's a hard and heavy special, so let me skip through the song. Yeah, that's nothing that we're going to talk about today. But
Nothing against it. We
nothing
like
against it, of course.
We've done it. We'll
No
do
offense.
it again.
Yeah.
We're just today's not the day.
Today's a special about hard and heavy, but there will be some upcoming Show Your Mix sessions
Yes.
where we.
So please don't think we're
discuss about-
discriminating. We're
Yeah,
not. We're
absolutely.
just zoning in on this. Maybe one day we'll do a blues and a I don't know what.
Yeah, good idea.
mix, some stuff
Maybe
like that.
movie score or something like
No,
that.
let's
or
not.
Avant-garde
That would
jazz.
take forever. No, thank you.
Definitely. So we can talk about one song. Okay.
Exactly.
So here we are. It's Animals. Let's give it a go.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Good song. I liked it. Okay. Where to start here? Let's see. First of all, positive notes for me. Good drum sound. I enjoyed it. Sounded really nice. Um, what I'm going to start with the thing that went the most negative was for me was is the bass guitar again. It was just there sometimes. Sometimes it focused on a note and you could hear that it supported the guitar a little bit. Sometimes it was so low. I saw around 30 hertz and heard around that area, 30, 40 hertz. There were some flying frequencies coming out from the bass guitar that just sort of made everything a little bit messy. Again, that's, done with good saturation control, meaning an amplifier or even real saturation and compression, this kind of thing. Harmonic distortion also can sort out these frequency discrepancies too, quite often, and I mean literally distorting a preamp, something like that, can really do wonders on a bass guitar. Having said that, I would have liked to have more concentration on getting the dynamics of the song, not going from loud to just staying loud. There were parts where there was less happening, but there was very little movement of the instruments. For example, in the chorus, I would have loved to hear the guitars go up a dB or two just to, make it slam a little bit more, because I felt like often in the chorus, I was just hearing cymbals and drums, and the guitar could have bounced out at me a little bit more in those spots. Having said that, guitar sound is cool, but it could be a little bit more, have a bit more impact. And especially in places like, this is with Linkin Park and bands like that, they have these, a lot of open chords, or dun, 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 where they do a lot of stops and mutes. If you use a compressor on heavy guitars, something like, a standard VCA compressor with a very fast release and a very slow attack at a very low ratio, just to give this grab feel, so it comes at you, the attack, and then goes away. Not necessarily compressing it to control the level, but to give it this certain kind of pulse. Okay, that can be achieved with a typical SSL kind of compressor. There's lots of plugins that do this very, very well. It's not a special kind of thing I'm talking about. I'm just talking about a low ratio, slow attack, fast release compression that just makes a grabby feel to the guitar on these stoppy parts. That's about all I had to say. Vocal sound was good. Drum sound was good. Only the bass guitar sort of got messy and lost in many places. And that was it for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool vibes going on, some Linkin Park, and definitely. I really liked the fusion of having these trap hi-hat drum programming with the more modern metal kind of approach. That's something, because I am a person who absolutely, yeah, let's say, I'm not so much in love with the trap hi-hats, but in this case, it really worked to add this triplet feel with the drum programming, because the person who did the mix didn't put the levels of these trap hi-hats too loud. So it's just coming from one side and a little bit from the background. It wasn't that dominant, so it works in the context. And you have some great feel, some rhythmic addition to what's actually going on. So yeah, heads up for that. Really good work. I think you could maybe focus a little bit more on the clean vocals, because the scream vocals were absolutely fine, but the clean vocals, they could have been maybe a little bit more, little bit louder, or some more reverb and delay stuff going on. But it's just fine. It's just an idea to maybe, let's raise this in the chorus section, for example, by 1 or 1.5 dBs, and let's see what happens. As well as the guitars, as Dennis said, to have a little bit more dynamic going on, because this song totally lives from its atmosphere. If you have a mid-tempo song like this, there's not much like double bass going on, or blast beats, or a lot of rhythmic changes. So you have to focus on atmosphere, on rooms, on verbs, on delays to make it happen, actually. And one other good thing that I would like to say about this session today, there hasn't been any mix yet with too wide stereo field, because especially in musical styles like this one, people tend to have a too wide panning setting, and then you will have problems when you listen to it in mono, for example, on your iPads, on your smartphones, because some information just gets lost, and that's definitely not the case today, and that's what makes me really happy, actually. So that's something that people are aware or seem to be aware of these days again, because listening in mono to some mixes is actually not that unimportant as it may seem. So it's really cool, and that's what makes me happy with this example in particular, as there's so much atmosphere in rooms going on, to have a good sounding mono mix as well. All right, shall we go on with the next one? It's just entitled as Fate, I think. So let's see what Fate has to offer.
I think it's over.
Yeah, just a fade out.
That was no fade out.
Or a clear cut.
Okay. All right. First of all, I've done this style of music often too, believe it or not. And I get what it's about, and I know what you're looking for. It's not about having that hi-fi bass drum and snare from hell. Actually, it does not matter at all. It is the point of the song, the aggressivity. And therefore, I have to say it was much too warm and fuzzy and cuddly to be an aggressive song for me. Okay? Let's start with the drums. The drums sounded like they were in the next room. And I don't mean in reverb, I mean behind a wall. There was absolutely no high end. Nothing going on up there at all. However, the way the drums sat together, kick, snare, even though it was a little bit, how can I say, linear, which is not a bad thing. You know, doesn't sound like anything was pumped up, the kick, the snare, nothing was really exaggerated. If the drums were grouped into just a stereo bus, I would have at least sat an EQ in there and try to get some treble out, some high frequencies out, and maybe shift the low end to be deeper than it is now, because it's very boxy, around 150, 200 hertz. It was very, very thud, 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 without being ooh. And I would have tried a master EQ on the drums totally to get them brighter and make, you know, these just sound a little bit more fitting to the vocals, which were not too warm. They were definitely sounding like I think they should sound, you know. The guitars were also a bit too warm for me. I would have, again, reduced the very top high frequencies if necessary. I don't know. And then between 2, 3K, you know, let it bite a little bit, because sometimes, you know, that kind of guitar has to be nasty and gritty and not just hummy. Bass guitar, I didn't even really notice, to be totally honest. The good side of everything is it fit together quite well. I wasn't too keen on, I think there was an echo toward the end, just like a normal quarter note or half note trail off of hello, hello, hello. And that didn't have any impact on me. If you're going to use an effect, it's got to have an impact. It's either got to be so subtle that it's just going to make some kind of a background effect that, makes the soup all, fit together better. Or it's going to be something that's going to, make a statement like, hello, hello, hello. And that just sort of went, hello, hello, and faded off. In that case, I would not do it if it's not doing anything dramatically interesting. And the main thing is that the fact that it sounded extremely warm for a mix of this genre, where I would expect it to be a lot more aggressive in the high mids and much brighter in general. Okay. Having said that, the vocals didn't sound like that. It was just the music that sounded like that. Okay. That was it for me.
All right. Yeah. Everything that Dennis said can also be seen in the analyzer this time. So if you take a closer look at the frequency response, you can see, okay, there's not much going on, much energy here, starting at 1K towards the end of the line. But there's a lot of frequency masking and covering in the lower sections, for example, between 100 and 200 hertz. And these warm sounds are usually produced by overemphasizing maybe the lower mids and the mid section in general. But I would agree with the fact to add some crit and some bite to the guitars, because in this genre there's nothing wrong with letting them sound really aggressive and in the face, and to have a solid kind of field where the vocals can exist in the middle, and then you have the guitars coming from the sides and putting everything on another level. Yeah, so I think that's it. Let's get on with the last song for today, which is Pilgrim's Path.
Okay.
Let's see what we got.
Hidden treasures
Okay,
All right, last one for today.
last one for today. So, again, in general, it's mission accomplished. I think the song genre is being well presented here. Let's get to the sonics. There is something really weird going around 40 hertz. Really strange. It's either a reverb on the bass drums or the drums, or something is just shaking. There's a constantly. It's just always there. And if you don't hear it, then either you don't have a speaker system with deep enough frequencies, or have like a subwoofer. Because here it's so obvious. It's really just constantly, and it might be again from sustained length of a bass drum. You might want to gate it to make it shorter. It could be a reverb that's just sustaining these frequencies. In that case, I would use a reverb that wouldn't sustain or had less return response of the low frequencies, or just use a high pass filter so that it doesn't do that. Guitars, it sounded pretty good actually, but I wanted to point out that in mixing, there's other things you do other than just, set up your EQ and compression and reverbs. Many times I had the feeling there were some breaks and stuff where you could have cleaned up in between the stops and the hand movements. I heard lots of where there should have been quiet pauses. And in that case, I would have cut them out, faded them a little bit, make these cleaner, because when you have space, the next part comes in with a bit more impact. Dun, 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 instead of dun, dun, dun. It's part of the mixing job, in my opinion. So that would be the main thing. The drum, that low frequency, whatever that is, that's was kind of distracting me, to be honest. I kept hearing that too much. And I love the snare, by the way. I got to say, I'm into that kind of very dense sounding snare. With a lot of early reflections or nonlinear kind of reverb on it. I'm a big fan of that. Have been for years. Bass guitar, I didn't really notice, but I was, like I said, just so distracted by that 40, 50 hertz resonance, whatever that was going on. At the very end of this song, it was very obvious. It just, something went, and you saw the analyzer freak out at that point. So that's something you need to really be careful of. I think it's the bass drum. I can't tell for sure, but I think it is the bass drum. And guitar sounds good, and the solo sound was good. Vocals, I can only say nothing special from the sound, but it was also from the performance, honestly, not that amazing, to be totally truthful about it. And therefore, if they were better performed, I would definitely say much too quiet. They definitely got to be brought out better. And then I heard in a couple spots where I thought, oh, there you got to push them back. Then again, depends what you want, and I can't emphasize enough that you have automation. You can make things louder and quieter. That's one of the biggest parts of mixing is not setting up your EQ. It's balancing your levels between each other, and making things sound loud when they should sound loud, and quiet when they should sound quiet. And automation is a gift from God, basically. So use it. That's all I got.
Cool. I think that's a great final statement. I can also agree with Dennis. Some really strange stuff going on at 40 hertz. Maybe you can have another check on that. What's actually the cause of these little issues? And a little bit more extra work on the editing would definitely bring it to another level as well. Speaking of making the breaks sound like a break, and maybe reducing a little bit of the harsh S sounds. I'm not so really okay with the S sounds here, but it's not a major problem. They don't speak out too much. Maybe using a dynamic EQ or a little bit of a de-esser with a lower threshold might do the job here as well. And I actually like the bass sound once you could hear it in a few parts. But again, maybe focusing on having control between the kick drum and the bass sound as well. Because I think the processing wasn't that bad actually, but it could shine a little bit more by adding, for example, saturation, distortion, maybe a little bit of a compression who does that, or that does that in that case. So I think that's it for today. Thanks a lot for your songs. A lot of great songs going on here. The two of us had a great time. listening to your songs and giving you some feedback. We really hope that you liked today's session and that you could get some feedback for your mixes that bring it to another level, and you can go on with mixing. But there actually wasn't any bad song today.
No, there was
Great
nothing
stuff.
where I was.
Very well done.
Yes, that's definitely the best so far.
And as I mentioned, I'm really, really happy with little things like having a 2-wide stereo axis with your song when listening to mono. It all breaks down. That's definitely not the case for today, so big hats off. That's really great and very unusual, actually. And yeah, so I think we're done for today.
Yes.
Have a great weekend.
Have a good one. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everybody. Enjoy mixing. Stay safe.
See ya.
Till next time. See ya. Bye-bye.